I'm not sure if it was 94, 95, 96. It was one of those. A year ago in Olympia, Washington. He was born in Massachusetts, Boston, Massachusetts. He had a twin brother who he was very close to his whole life. In his youth, Mathew was a ballet dancer. He was a ballet dancer. And then during the Korean War, he must have been a very young man in the Korean War. In the Korean War, he was a chaplain in the U.S. Army. And he served in Korea and in Japan. He had all sorts of interesting stories to tell me, how he helped a lot of orphans and so on. There's some stuff that maybe should have. But anyway, he did a lot of good things for a lot of people during the Korean War. Very interesting stories. Then he got a job in Minnesota where he invented food packaging. Worked on food packaging equipment and invented some food packaging techniques. When I see some food packages, I invented that. All right. Well, I guess Mathew was best known for being a promoter of rock and roll in the 1970s. He had several bands that he generated and promoted, but the best known one today is the Jefferson Airplane. And he not only brought them together, he got them concerts, he arranged for the renting of the location, the sound equipment, put up money in advance to have the whole concert happen, and then collected the money at the gate. He did all that. He hired a lot of people to do that. And he said to me that, Yaakov, I never got mad, and I never got angry, and I never got mad at anybody working for me. Because I do get mad, so that's what he says. I always did it, I never raised my voice. Okay, good. Okay? He traveled in his bus nationwide with his daughter. So he had a bus that was outfitted with living quarters, a bathroom. It was an old school bus, a refitted school bus, and he went nationwide with his daughter, stopped at various national parks, and he described it as a great time in life with his daughter. Then he sent his daughter to study in Israel when she was, I don't know, a teenage girl. He sent her to study in Israel, and he lived in Israel then with her. He was a real estate investor and homeowner in Malibu. He had several properties that he bought and sold. I only knew him when he had his two houses on Harvester. He had two adjacent houses on Harvester. Each one was a little over an acre. On Harvester, all the properties are an acre or more. He was on the north side of Harvester. He first had a two-story house. He had a horse corral in front of it. I first went there for his annual birthday parties, my wife and I, which was at the end of December. We all went, right? He invited all of us. We all went to his birthday parties. What I remember about his birthday parties, he had no heat, and it was cold in the end of December. So we sit there all shivering in his cold house. Huh? And he had these rock and roll guys. Oh yeah, he had a sound stage in his cellar. And some of his parties he had rock and roll guys. Then he forgot about us who weren't rock and roll, and he ignored us. And only the rock and roll guys counted. Okay. Anyway, he had known a lot of people. He knew Elvis Presley. If there was anybody who was ever anybody at that time, Mathew knew him. He knew everybody who was ever in music or everything. So mention somebody, oh, I knew him. Huh? He owned a collection of Jaguar cars. Because what she had on his property, most of them didn't work at all, and the neighbors didn't like it, you know, but he had them there. Most of them burned up completely in the Malibu fire. what I really admired about Mathew was he put up many people free. People who needed housing, he put them up free in his house. They sometimes they made arrangements to do work or pay him money. They never did work and they never paid him money. Huh? But anyway, he put him up in both his houses. All right. So that's it. Mathew was best known as the best known man who was a regular at Chabad Malibu. Of all the people who went to Chabad Malibu, and a person would come from time to time, Mathew was the number one person who they looked for. He was the number one person. He attended more events there than any other person over a longer period of time. He was the most, and then he was the Kohen, which means he was the priest. He was a descendant of Aaron, who was, of course, Moses' brother. Okay, I drove him around in his later years in my car to give him rides. He lived with Mathew lived with me 5 months after the Malibu fire. He lived with me downstairs in my dining room, and we saw him for 5 minutes at that time. And anyway, that's all. So that's all I have to say. So you may, the two of you may say whatever you wish.
Ready to go?
Go ahead, yeah.
Okay, pretty exhaustive list, that code. It was very complete. I got to know Mathew going back and forth to services over many years. He was a very kind individual. He did put people up, as Yaakov noted. He was taken advantage of, but he didn't seem to have any type of anger regarding that. He just took people as they were, and he was glad to help them out. He did take his role as Kohen very seriously in terms of both responsibility and also the rights. Remember, he always wanted to be first in line to get food, and he got upset if someone said things, so it was kind of amusing. He did, and he was kind of like a Leonardo da Vinci of our times. He knew a lot about a lot of different areas. He was a very intelligent individual, and he had a lot of expertise in everything ranging from the food processing that Yaakov mentioned, to music, to how the homeowners in the Broad Beach area should protect their homes from all the water. He had his own theories about global, as it's called, global warming now, or about whether his one theory is that the water would take over the houses on the coast and he would have waterfront property at some point. He talked about that a lot. He always stood up for what he believed. He never backed down, so it was admirable that he was fearless. I have one story where, regarding music, my son was playing at an event in Santa Monica, and Mike McDonald, who was one of the famous singers from the Doobie Brothers, was there. And I made the mistake of listening to Mathew. He told me to go and say hello, and say that he said hello to him, and I didn't realize that Mathew had gotten into a big battle with Mike McDonald a few years back, and I was wondering why Mike McDonald wasn't that receptive to my saying hello to him and mentioning Mathew. I found that out later. But it was kind of amusing. I don't know if he set that up purposely to have a joke on me, or if he just didn't realize. But he would tell me stories every time we drove to and from Chabad. They're interesting at first. Sometimes he would repeat them, the same story over and over again, but I listened patiently because he was such a kind person. He had a good heart, and he was a stalwart, as Yaakov said, attendee of the services. Everyone was pleased to see him all the time. He was a fixture there, and it was kind of sad to see him kind of get sick towards the end and move out of the area. Everyone missed him, and I wish he rests in peace.
Mm-hmm.